How's it going, NPA fans? Lynx Forte here, and today we have our weekly pick'em, and I am joined by my co-host Levonant.
Hello, folks. It's Levonant, aka War for 120 here, and when it comes down to it, the NPA season is getting underway, and we want to bring you the rundown week to week and kind of our pick'em analysis for what's going on in these individual matchups. Look, we didn't have a first week matchup of pick'ems and whatnot, mainly because with 24 teams out there, it gets a little confusing, doesn't it, Lynx?
Very so. It's always going to be a difficult time trying to pick these matchups, but I think we can eventually get it into a roll and have a great time, get some of the fans involved into this, and yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what we're going to do essentially is we're going to show you each of the individual matchups, give you a little bit of breakdown analysis of what's going on, and then move on forward to kind of show you what we actually think is going to be the winner of that matchup, as well as show you the collective votes of all the other analysts out there voting and who we see as the predominant favorite going into this match based off of our group analysis, so to speak. And at the end of the day, please save your hate for the comment section. And please, at the end of the day, remember, we are unpaid friends that just want to have fun and talk with you guys about Pokemon. So at the end of the day, I'll see you on Showdown. That being said, Lynx, let's get things cracking right here. Let's go over that first matchup if you don't mind me. That first matchup, we have the Iowa Hawluchas versus Free State Torracats. Kind of break it down for me what you're seeing going into this match right here. What are the coaches like? What are they feeling?
Well, everyone knows that Duncan is new to the Draft League format, but I think everyone saw enough from Duncan last week to say he can hold his own, especially going up against A-Drive first week. That's got to be a hard matchup, not seeing any of his previous, battles during the season. But I think that's why I'm going to pick Duncan to win this matchup here. Radioactive, he showed me some flashes, but I just don't think that's enough to, pull him over Duncan.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, Radioactive, for me, when I look at the two teams right there, Radioactive has less synergized effort as far as a core. Do you notice, Lynx, that he actually has 4 water types and 3 psychic types on his roster? 4 water types, 3 psychic types on his roster.
I did not notice the 4 water types.
four water types. Ludicolo, Bruxish. There's 2 others in there as well. But, it's one of those where it's just the more you think about it, the more you're just like, well, okay. I mean, maybe he loves water. I don't know, man. Everybody has their little love affairs out there, But when you have Pelipper, Bruxish, Ludicolo, and also Keldeo on your roster, buddy, you gotta lay off the Wawa. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a forced rain team. I mean, maybe throughout the season he patches it up by making some trades with other teams or picking up some free agents. But it's just really forced. It's a good water team, but it's just too forced in my opinion.
It really is because, it's just, like I said, you don't need 4 water types. That's why I think both of us in this matchup are going with the Free State Torracats in this when it comes down to it. Now, as far as the total votes out there, what were the total actual votes out there as far as the analyst picks going forward for this match?
For this matchup, it looks like it's 5-3 in favor of Duncan.
Right, that's what we're seeing right there. We're seeing kind of a big roll of support in favor of Duncan Knee-Deep right there going forward, which makes sense. I mean, like I said, what we talked about, even if you didn't notice what I talked about with the 4 water types, 3 psychic types, here's the thing is that I'm not joking with you. I 100% expect Scarfed Kartana to come in here like the third Pokemon that Duncan uses after he gets 2 of his Pokemon dead, brings it in as a free switch, and then starts just trailer wrecking the team. Scarfed Kartana, I feel like, is going to put in 3 kills at least in this matchup going forward.
I could definitely see that. Kartana is one of the scariest Scarf type Pokemon or Scarf Pokemon in the meta, being able to just get an attack beast boost throughout the entire game and just sweep your team with it if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah, and the best part is that with the Hawlucha's roster, he actually can lock into Leaf Blade and just go for it. That stab Leaf Blade with the high crit ratio is a monster to talk about when you really think about it. 90 power base with stab with a higher crit ratio with beast boost options is getting ugly pretty fast.
Very. And it kind of makes you wonder, would he bring a rain team just because Hawlucha pretty much decimates it?
Yeah, that could be a question too as well. But that being the case, let's move on to our next matchup. Like I said, just so you guys know, anything we say is never going to be a true negative. Bradio, please prove us wrong and show us what you got.
I would love to be proved wrong, to be honest.
Absolutely. We're going to move on to the next matchup right here, where we see the Philadelphia Braviaries taking on the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, what are your thoughts? Both of these teams are 1-0, but what do you see going into this match, Lynxy?
With this matchup, I think it's going to come down to experience. And, John has the experience being with the GBA for so long. I think he's played in other smaller leagues as well. I think that's what this matchup is going to come down to. I think they have pretty even teams. Let me just pull up these teams real quick.
Well, let me just expand on this a little bit while you're doing that. A little bit of side research, Mr. No Prep. No, I'm just kidding around. When it comes down to it, look, you're right. John does have a little bit more of a historical experience as far as what we know of. Now, granted, we always hear about people having leagues that aren't posted to YouTube. I know for myself, I have about 5 or 6 leagues that I've never actually posted to YouTube. But at the same time, when you look at the matches, this is something that I've told people about John. John is a great battler, mind you. He over-predicts too freaking much. It's his biggest number one problem that I've always noticed with John. And I love you, John, but you got to stop doing that. When you hard switched your Raikou into Electivire's Earthquake, you know this, John. You know what you opened the door against Nexus, to where Nexus almost beat you because of yourself. You almost lost the game for yourself, and that's what I fear could happen right here. We saw last week against with the Braviaries that against when Goofy's Enigma couldn't man up and stay in and take a hit. He had Manaphy behind a sub, and I know it was Scarf Manaphy, but at the same time, don't burn a sub. You don't want to burn a sub. At least let the sub get burned, destroyed before you pull a Pokemon out. He could have. I don't know what he was locked into off the top of my head, but he could have just gone for a move just to get some chip damage, possibly get some hacks involved right there. The thing is, you never want to burn a sub, and the thing is that's what Gofies did.
I think he was locked in the Ice Beam in that matchup. I understand the logic, but as you said, you don't want to burn that sub. You're going to take the damage unless the opponent has like a Boom Burst or Hyper Voice coming at you, which that wasn't the case in that match.
Yeah, I think he was in on scissor with that turn, I think. And the thing was, and like I said, even if you're locked in with Freeze Dry, it's an opportunity for you at least to have a chance for a Hacks roll with Ice Beam free. Because
not even that, damage is damage sometimes.
Exactly. You never know if they're going to have Roost. I think his Scizor had Roost, but I don't think he had showed it yet at that point. And that's the thing is that last week Chris Cobain capitalized due to his opponent's switches, and that's why I actually am picking Philadelphia in this matchup. What did you pick, Lynx?
I picked New Orleans in this matchup. Like I said, I'm just gonna have to go based on experience.
And I love John, man, and I hope him for the best right here. He has a great team, but like I said, he almost lost the match for himself due to just not over predicting. It's just over predictions sometimes are your biggest enemies. We've all lost matches because of it, and that's just what I think is going to end up happening. I feel like he's going to overanalyze one turn, and Cobain's going to get the chip damage that he needs that one turn to have it happen. As far as totals go for this matchup, what were the totals for this matchup going forward?
This matchup was 6 in favor of New Orleans.
6 in favor of New Orleans. So I have the least favorite of the two options right here that I'm actually supporting. So that's actually interesting to note right there. But we are seeing, like I said, this is a very skilled battler right here. I fully want him to. I'm a fan of his actually, so I do want him to win. I know that his style, his issues that he's had in the past could prevent him from winning this game. But let's move on actually to our next matchup going forward. And that is going to be kind of a wild card in a lot of ways. A matchup of two players that had a rough start to the season, but are really, at the end of the day, just interesting guys. Forte, what are you seeing going into this matchup against the Rochester Rhydons versus my boy Kyle A, or actually our boy Kyle A?
Yeah, I love Kyle A, man, and I love his team. And I had a difficult, time picking this matchup. I looked back at it, and Big Palm Gaming, he went into that matchup against, was it Elliott? I think
Elliott,
he played.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and with the Salamence not not expecting defog. I understand not expecting it, but I think you still have to prep for defog Salamence no matter what. And it was just like a decision I didn't understand overall. And with Kyle, I think he may be a little too reliant on the rain. And, you know, I understand it. You have a monster team that excels in the rain, where what Tornadus T, Roserade, Raichu, Kingdra. I just think you can't, you know, rely on that every week, and he's gonna have to, you know, figure that out. But in this matchup, I have I'm gonna go with Big Palm Gaming. I'm sorry, Kyle, but I gotta go with Big Palm.
So you're going with the Rhydons here. Well, this is where we actually disagree again. Now, here's the thing, guys. Both rosters have 4 weaknesses to rock on their entire roster. Here's the big thing. Here's the big kicker, though. Pum made a huge mistake last week, dropping sticky webs. I told you this when we were talking last week, Lynx. There was no reason to drop sticky webs against Galactic Elliot's team. Galactic Elliot only had 2 faster Pokemon that were actually going to outspeed Emboar, and neither, or at least in terms of just generally outspeeding Emboar by a noticeable amount, as far as what you would expect to happen. And those 2 Pokemon weren't affected by sticky webs. So I feel like that was a wasted effort. And then he like I said, you know, whenever you have a Pokemon like Galvantula, it's a glass cannon, so it can drop the web, but it also, you know, has to do work. And the thing is that he didn't really get the work out of it that it could have had in that matchup. It was a faster Pokemon, and it really, you know, in a non-priority driven team that was Galactic Elliot's roster, he could have made that do a lot more work going forward. That was just a really big mistake in my part. I think both teams are going to drop rocks in this match early on. Neither team is really going to be interested in defogging them, just because they're just not. I just don't see Kyle wasting a turn doing that, and I don't see Pum, you know, thinking about doing that either. And that's not a diss, by the way. That's just the way I see it. I don't see them actually I see Hadid staying on the field the entire match for both sides. The question is he gonna if Pum tries to drop webs against a rain team, it's just not worth it. You know, he's not really gaining anything by dropping webs against a rain team unless he has active priority. But when you think about it, the 2 rosters right there, Rochester and Miami, both have a monster wall breaker, and both have a monster wall breaker with similar coverage. Kieran Black and Mega Aerodactyl have similar coverage when you look at their entire move pool. The big thing is that Kyole has better switch-ins to the whole of Kieran Black versus the whole of Mega Aerodactyl over on the other side of the field. Think about it when it comes down to it. Kieran Black gets outsped by Mega Aerodactyl with its Choice Scarfed. And also, you know, Mega Aerodactyl has access to rock moves, has access to pretty much everything. Has access to Iron Head for Florges, has access to Fire Fang for Fortress. It has access to Night Slash, I'm pretty sure. Has access to some kind of Ice Fang, or has access to Aqua Tail, which Oko is Rhyperior, I'm pretty sure. Has access to pretty much every move out there as far as different type coverage. And the thing is that if you look at Big Pum's defensive cores, they don't hold up as well against Mega Aerodactyl, as well as Kieran Black gets walled by Cresselia, by Granbull, by you know, even things like Politoed in certain situations. And that I think is going to be enough of an edge to give Kyle A the advantage in this matchup. I have to go with my boy Kyle A in this one, purely because of who has the better way to stop the opposing team's Mega Wall Breaker. Does that make sense, Forte?
I know you and I were talking that this game has potential to be match of the week, and I could honestly see this battle going either way.
And so did the rest of the analysts out there. We actually
split 4-4.
It's actually split 4-4 across the entire way. So, like I said, I hope for a great game out there. Big Palm, you know, like I said, you know, Kieran Black is a monster. I expect you to be able to put good work with it. I just, you know, when it comes down to it, personally for me, Lynx, like I said, I just see Kyle A having better natural ways to deal with Kieran Black versus Rochester having better natural ways to deal with Mega Aerodactyl. That's really kind of the difference maker right there.
I can see that.
But
I can definitely see it.
Yeah. That being the case, though, let's move on to our next matchup, if you will. I think we have a good one coming up right here in the matchup of the Hampshire Haunters versus the Seattle Staraptors. What are you seeing in this matchup right here?
In this matchup in particular, it's I kind of think, is someone gonna maybe try like a Z rain or a Z rain dance? He has the Manaphy here. He has the fast me and Chow. It's all about speed on Gofi's side, in my opinion. He has a very fast team, and then on Gearhart's team, can he do anything to slow Gofi's down?
Right.
I just look at his team and think it's kind of defensive mixed with some offensive power. He has the Mega Sharpedo. I don't think he can, get that speed boost going, but it just really I don't think this really favors him.
Okay.
But at the same time, Gearhart played a better match last week than Gofi's did. So I'm personally going to give the edge to Gearhart.
One of the big things as well, I think there's two things about the Hampshire Haunters that I think you need to think about whenever you're thinking about this matchup, guys. And that is the Hampshire Haunters have a serious problem with their roster, and that is that they have to bring Delmise each and every week. And when you really think about it, they kind of have to. If you look at their overall wall breakers or their big Pokemon on their roster, as far as being able to do damage against the opponents, Crobat, Volcanion, Manaphy. Do you hear what I'm saying right there? I hear across your big three as far as damage potential, or at least expected damage potential, all three weak to what? Electric type moves. That's an issue, and so you have to bring your natural defensive against electric type Pokemon. So he's kind of forced to bring Delmise each and every week to a certain extent, and that can cause problems going forward for the Hampshire Haunters. Last week we saw, like I mentioned earlier, that Gofi's had some issues with just his opponent, with just dealing with switches. He was doing switches. He switched out of a sub. He switched out of this. He switched out of that. And ultimately, you switch enough, you know what you're doing when you're switching? You're not doing damage against your opponent. And unless you have ways to recover that damage the very next turn, which he didn't, you lose. That's just the way it works, Lynx. And that being the case, that's why I have to also go with the Seattle Staraptors. Anytime that Gearhart switched last week, it was doing so with potential to absorb damage and then recover that damage later on. He used Sylveon perfectly, a Pokemon that everyone thought that he screwed up whenever he drafted first round, third overall. But he used it to a perfect advantage right there to be able to not only confuse but also piss off Kyle A. And when you can get your opponent pissed off, you usually gain a huge advantage right there.
Yeah.
What's the actual totals against the entire analyst pool right here with this matchup?
This is 7-1 in favor of the Star Raptors.
But, prove us wrong though, Gofies. Show us what you can do, and like said, find a way to better deal with the issue of the dual problem or triple problem of your big three as far as damage potential, all being weak to one type. Let's move on to our next matchup though, if you don't mind, my good friend Lynxy. We have ourselves a potential for the showcase game of the week as far as the fans out there. What have you, right?
That I think they will call it that.
Absolutely. Please give us a little bit of analysis, my homie.
So, just before I go into my mini breakdown, would you maybe say that Elliott has the best drafted team?
I think he has clearly, if not. Unless
maybe top three.
Yeah, you can't argue out of top three. It all depends on your personal preference out there. I personally do think that he has the best drafted team out there as far as just self-constructed, just really dynamic situation. Now, obviously, getting Mega Metagross just puts you up a tier regardless.
Your team all the way to the top automatically.
It's hard to argue with it. It really is, especially whenever it shuts down so many of the new Pokemon that were actually introduced into the meta this season. So, yes, very important Pokemon right there.
Right. So you and I were talking about this, and we both kind of agreed that Elliott's team plays for itself. It's kind of like LeBron James. You don't need a coach in this sense. Mm-hmm. But with that, I just think Dan, his prep, his team behind him, I'm not even going to go on experience. It's because of Dan's mentality, what he knows. He knows what to expect. He knows the perfect prediction. I think if this match were later on, as you were saying before, if this match were later on in the season, I could give the edge to Elliott. But with this being the second week, and I don't think Elliott has found that groove just yet, because honestly, I think he could have won that matchup last week bigger than he did. I have to give this edge to Dan.
Absolutely. I'm in the same boat, by the way, when it comes down to this. Look, Dan, we all know has an excellent front office setup. He has great guys with him. He has guys that he trusts that know how to push his buttons. But more importantly, you know that he's not going to come to a match unprepared. We saw him do that a couple of times in the GBA last season, but that was due to his wedding situations. He probably wouldn't admit that because he's a humble guy and whatnot and doesn't want to put it on his wife. But we all know that whenever you're stressed out and doing other things, your prep can suffer a little bit. He's not going to have that right now. He's moved into a new place. He's settled. He has a great office set up. He's gonna be ready to go against him. And more importantly, he has 3 Pokemon that really help him deal with the issue of Mega Metagross. And we were talking about this off camera, but essentially, if he brings these 3 Pokemon, I just see it being a rough situation for Elliott going forward in this matchup. The 3 mons we're talking about, of course, are Necrozma, Vaporeon, and Shaman. If he can bring all 3 of those in this matchup and be able to put them all as a defensive investment situation, he really can, in a lot of ways, just use them and utilize their diversity and what they can do to help stop Mega Metagross. Because Mega Metagross may have coverage for 1 or 2 of them, it's not going to have coverage for all 3, and definitely not Oko coverage for all 3.
Correct. And it's not even that. I look at the Crocodile. He used the Crocodile great against Duncan last week. But Crocodile has always been not an answer, but it has been a nice check to Mega Metagross because you don't know if that Crocodile is going to be Choice Scarf. Normally, when you see abilities such as Intimidate or Moxie, if you don't see the Intimidate pop off, you automatically think, oh, this is a Choice Scarf.
Right.
But personally, I have seen Choice Scarf Intimidate Crocodile, and I think that could kind of scare Mega Metagross as well.
It very well could. I mean, because it nerfs the physical attack in case of whatever situation it is, to where even if he wants to go for a chip damage bullet punch or wants to go for a faster attack, like say an ice punch or whatever, unless he has a meteor mashup, it makes it a little bit harder to get that Oko power versus Crocodile, who while not having the strongest, defensive setup typing out there, it can still, take a little bit of damage. It has some decent HP and 92 investment right there. So. Yeah. When you look at the totals actually right here, I think the analysts overwhelmingly put this in favor of Dan. And I think it was kind of like what we were talking about. It's too early in the season. Elliott did make a little bit of rusty plays last week, and it's okay. It's the early part of the season. If this was late, like 5 weeks later, I think it would be a more even split. But right now, it's just a little too early for Elliott against a two-seasoned battler.
Yeah, I completely agree.
That being the case, though, let's move on. Let's move on. And like I said, Elliott, please prove us wrong. Do a great job and show us what you got. We want to move on to the next match, though. The next match is going to be the Pittsburgh Pichus, our friend Numb Nexus, versus the Colorado Rapidash and Swami, actually a new coach to the league this season. You guys know Numb Nexus, of course, from the UCL and from back in his GBA days, if I remember correctly. Give me a little bit of a rundown for this showdown when it comes down to it, buddy.
Yeah, with Numb Nexus, I think a lot of people were pretty excited to hear that he was going to be joining the NPA, just because if you've ever watched the UCL, Numb Nexus has helped a lot of other players in that league, team build, and I think he's regarded as a great team builder, if not one of the best in the UCL. And when it came down to it, I think everybody may have, even though we didn't poll anyone, everyone may have been expecting him to come away with the win against John. But it was just a few rusty plays. You and I talked about the whole Zoroark situation, but I don't really think that had anything to play into it. And then when it comes down to Moonlight Swami, like you said, he's a newer player. I didn't really know what to expect from him, but he showed me a lot.
More importantly, he showed me that his prep is on point. That's what he showed me. When you have the balls to rock a Z rock move on Virizion, that shows not only foresight into your opponent's roster, but just more importantly, just an ability to adapt. He used it to take care of Pelipper and thus remove speed buffs from his opposing side of the field, remove thunder accuracy from his opposing side of the field. That was really genius play right there. When it comes down to it, that showed me right there that Swami's prep game is on point. And with Nexus, we did see a decent prep job. Like I said, it came down to the wire. And a lot of it is because he has Lele. When it comes down to it, you're going to have a hard time counting out Lele. Lele is a lot like Metagross in this format, where you can You can try to hate on it all you want, but at the end of the day, you're just going to sound like a moron if you're trying to hate on it. There's a reason why.
I've always called Lele just a win button.
It basically is. If you rock a Modest Choice scarf for Lele, you're just asking for a win, essentially. There's a reason why it's so pow-pow, And
Yep.
it doesn't even have to run a choice scarf. I like to use choice scarves because it just, allows me to be able. Its physical defense isn't the best in the world, but that ability to, and plus it blocks priority, so it allows you to be able to to scout other scarfers in the high speed tiers, which is why I like it so much. Now, when it comes down to the Pichus, I think the biggest problem with Nexus last week was that he counted himself out too early in that match. Did you remember that when you watched the match? He was counting himself out about 5 or 8 turns into the match. He started saying, "Oh, I already lost. And you can't.
Yeah, I understand. You make bad plays and you kind of think I can't recover from this, but you got to remember you can always recover from everything. People get hacks throughout a battle the entire time, and I think we have a matchup coming later that we can talk about that. But
absolutely.
You get hacks through an entire battle, but at the end of the day, you can always pull back.
Yeah.
And you just have to make the correct plays. You have to, in a sense, woosah and, think about your plays.
That's right. That's why you put EDM in your headphones while you're playing your match and just chill. And like I said, just because of just the mentality aspect of it, I have to go with the Colorado Rapidash in this matchup. How about yourself going forward, Lynx? Are you giving the Pichus a shot this week?
I am definitely giving the Pichus a shot. Like I said, Nexus is a great prep person.
He is.
He's a great battler. I think he does that woosah and pulls out the win.
He always has a good attitude. Even when he was counting himself out, he had a good attitude last week. I think if he hadn't have adopted that mindset, he would have been able to pull it out. Because, like I said, John in a lot of ways opened it up, and when it really comes down to it, I think it came down to a low roll, didn't it? To whether or not the Pichus won, and that's because I think his Tapu Fini on John's side was at 4% when it was all over, and he won or something.
Yeah, I think Nexus said he calced it, and I personally did some calcs, and it wasn't a low roll. It was, I think it was not necessarily a max roll, but he was gonna survive either way.
Okay, well that's good to know. But at the same time, it was still close enough to where it was worth talking about right there.
Yeah.
As far as the overall analyst crew out there, we've actually seen it kind of a little split right there. But even though Nexus lost this first week, we still give him an edge going into this match as far as the analysts see it. 5-3 in favor of the Pittsburgh Pichus. We think he's going to do a great job going forward. Like I said, both sides of this battle are going to be. This is going to be a great one. If the Vikavolt match isn't and the Don fans and the Don fans match isn't going to be a good one, this one will definitely be a good one to watch.
Definitely.
But that being the case, guys, let's move on to our next matchup going forward. And this one is kind of a bit of a mystery wagon right here because we're seeing a coach right here who has a loss in his record that didn't actually play last week. Battler X was not present last week. It happens. Sometimes life is a well, let's just put it this way. Life is a biscuit. Sometimes you just got to crunch it. I was going to say something a lot worse right there, but we can't say that on the PA channel.
Cannot say that, no.
Exactly. Don't fire me, Joe Dore. This being the case, Lynx, what do you see in this matchup right here? It's kind of a mystery with one coach who hasn't even shown any of his skills so far this season, but Battle X is no joke.
Yeah, you kind of have to take a look at it and say, okay, take the draft team, and then you take another team who's actually played. And I can't do that. I can't say, I've never seen someone play. Obviously, we've seen Battler X play in the GBA, but we've never seen him use this team. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to make that decision. And then we see Papa C here, who has an amazingly offensive team with a couple of walls there. Yeah. I'm going to let you make your pick first because people are going to hate the reason why I made my pick.
Oh, so you just want to save it for me. Well, I just want to tell you guys right now, I'm going with Steve Battler X right here. And here's the reason why. For Papa C, and it has to do with how Papa C played last week. All right. Yes, we're being very fair with it when it comes to rolls, crits, hacks, all that jazz. Mistakes being made last week because there were a lot of just just I hadn't played in a while, mistakes being made. And you're right, Papa C has a very offensive team. He can scarf Jirachi and just click the Iron Head button to death. He can put E-Speed on Suicune and hit almost every Pokemon for 20% damage to a certain extent. He can choice Scarf Kyurem into Ice Beam and just say, come at me, bro. He can use Unburden Hitmonlee, and he has the ability to use Sticky Webs with Levonant on there. He has the mons to be able to run a very offensive and powerhouse team. The thing is that with how many hacks rolls that he had last week and unable to pull out the win, it just showed that either A, he had a severely inferior team, or B, had severely inferior prep. And either one is a concern for me. Mm-hmm. And that's why I have to give it to Battler X, just because I know that X is going to hit him with some random stuff that will rely on hacks. And, you hit someone with Ice Beam, 30 times in a row, you're eventually going to freeze them,
Right.
It's mostly a joke, but
I don't know, because in this gen, it seems like freeze happens a lot more than,
Exactly.
1 out of 30.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying there. It's mostly a joke, but at the same time, if you play enough turns with hacks rolls being done, it's gonna happen. You can't let somebody click Scald against you 10 times in a row and just get mad when it finally burns you. It happens way more than that, but you know what I'm saying, Lynx.
Yeah.
And like I said, for Papa C, yeah, go for it.
No, go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I was gonna say, and like I said, for Papa C to have the game that he had last week, and like I said, it was against Magearna. Magearna's a tough Pokemon, but at the same time, he had ways to get around it, and he had every advantage. I think he had like 5 paralysis hacks against Luster City.
It was 4 out of the last 6 turns.
That's correct. Yeah, 4 out of the last 6 turns, and that's why it became a close match. And like I said, he could have and should have won that match purely off of hacks.
Right.
What are your thoughts
with
there?
With my pick, it came down to 2 things. One, Steve has Savali, and with Savali, he's not limited to one type.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, he's getting all of them. So it's kind of hard to prep for Savali in that case.
Mm-hmm.
And then my secondary reason is the reason people are gonna hate. He has Komala.
If you guys can't tell from on screen, my boy Lynx has a little bit of a love affair with Komala. He's kind of like Komala. He's just a little lazy bear. Just likes to have a little peach fuzz in his face and just enjoy it. I can't blame you.
Yeah, I love my Komala, so I had to give it to Battle X just for those reasons.
But hey, man, a Pokemon that can't be statused is really actually a great asset, especially whenever you're playing against a team that's going to try to rely on hacks. As we saw from Papa C, essentially by having Komala on the roster, just by having him on the roster, he's effectively neutralized the problems of possibly switching into Levonant and trying to drop Sticky Webs, bringing in Klefki and trying to do all the Klefki things we always hate, like
the Thunder Wave,
and then
all that.
Yeah, exactly. And by doing that, he's able to essentially stop that going forward and put kind of a damper on that. So I would be shocked if the Clinks actually did bring Klefki this week, purely because of that. And it's the same thing with Gligar Toxic Stall. He's essentially got himself a way to get around that. And is that why you're going with Battler X as well? Just the idea of Komala has the ability to be viable.
Yeah, I think Komala has the ability to be viable, but the thing is, because I love Komala so much, I know it's so easy to play around.
Mm-hmm.
Kamala doesn't have the greatest physical defense, but you don't know what set Kamala is running until you see the entire set.
If you run what I call the Sweepy Bear set, the Sweepy Bear set. It's where it has bulk up on there, and then you just start going for it. And if you
bulk up is it's a set I played against, and it is the most annoying set because normally that set runs Wish alongside it.
Yep.
And it makes Komala really hard to kill.
Exactly.
It's kind of like a less bulky Snorlax.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like without losing its speed.
Yes.
Now, this being the case going forward, the overall analysts kind of saw it as a split match, and most of it I think has to do with the fact that we're Papa C does have a history of battling. In a good history of battling. He just had a rough one last week, and Battler X, like I said, he had a lot of new toy syndrome going forward, and so people are kind of wondering if he can actually make that all work. That's why it's kind of split 50-50, but, I guess the guys on call here, us two on call, are a little bit more biased, I guess. but Papa C, please prove us wrong. Please prove us wrong. Show us what you got. Kick some chickens. Let's move on to our next matchup going forward, my friend. We have, of course, our commissioner, Jodor, versus Kresselkey and the Adelaide Umbreons. Please, give me a little bit of breakdown, my boy Lynx.
Jodor played an amazing game last week. I honestly thought he was going to pull it out. The only thing that I didn't like, and he kind of referenced this in the beginning, is that he didn't prioritize putting up stealth rocks. I think had he gotten stealth rocks up, I can't predict the score, but I think he would have won that a lot sooner. Instead of losing it by, 10 HP left on the other side. That's
always the worst kind of feeling ever. It just makes you want to just like bang your head against a wall where it's like, I could have done it. Where was that one high roll that I needed somewhere? Because it's always like one little roll somewhere on some move that happens in a match like that.
Right. And it's not like he got shafted or anything like that. It was the roll that it was. It's not like he got a min roll on one and a high roll on the other. It's what it was. It could have been 2 max rolls, I don't know, but either way, it wouldn't have killed just because he needed that extra bit of damage, which could have come from rocks and should have come from rocks, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
On the other, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, I'm just reading with you, buddy.
Yeah. On the other side, we have Kresselkey, and from what I've been told, she got a lot of hate for her draft. And going into that match with under the radar, I'm pretty sure people were thinking this is going to be like a 4-0 or a 5-0, and even Kelly himself said, when he was doing his test battles, it always ended in a 4-0 or a 5-0. Cress pulled out, she almost actually won it. Right. In the end, she lost 2-0, and I think she surprised a lot of people with how well she can use this team. And Jodor, don't fire me, but I'm going to have to go with Cress on this one.
I actually am going with Cress as well in this one too. Please, Jodor, don't fire me. But when it comes down to it, here's the thing: is that Kresselkey, first of all, I just want to say it's really awesome to see a competent female battler in the format. This is not a lot of my experience, at least with female battlers. They can be a little incompetent sometimes, and sometimes just have fun basic sets, and Kressel is not that. So if you guys have bias against female battlers out there and don't have them against her, she's got some skittles, all right? But more importantly, her team is perfectly set up for hyper offense spam with a 6th defensive Pokemon, if that makes sense. If you look at her roster, she basically every single week can just lead off with a sturdy Alolan Golem getting ready to click Explosion and just see what happens, And while Jodor has Landorus Theory, and you can't predict whether it's Galvanized or Sturdy until you go for it, Right. And that's what Kressel has to her advantage. She can actually lead off with that Alolan Golem and just smack it. Now, granted, there is no cut stat berry out there, so darn it, none of that for her. But at the same time, she can use that every single week as to her advantage and be able to utilize it in many ways. She has the Mudsdale for a 6th Pokemon if she wants to use it. She has the Celesteela for a 6th Pokemon if she wants to use it. But when you have a Pokemon group like Hitmonchan that has 3 priority access moves, with one of them with Stab, when you have a Pokemon like Flygon that now has Dragon Dance, when you have a Pokemon like Salazzle that you can Focus Sash, Nasty Plot, and then just start face breaking, and of course our boy Azu. And let's put it this way: I mean, if you aren't scared of Azu when it goes into battle prep, you're not a battler, all right? Because if Azu is just basically a meaner Crawdaunt, all right, less weaknesses, ready to go. You let either one of those two come in at the wrong time, and all of a sudden you're eating bacon through a straw.
But don't forget the unpredictable Pokemon in Celesteela, whether it can be physically defensive or especially defensive, or it can go either offense and just get a beast boost out of any of those stats and proceed to sweep your team just because you don't know what it's going to run or because you didn't prep for it in the right way.
Exactly. It's very much like a Necrozma, which is a little bit less from the stretch offensive capabilities. Necrozma, I feel like, is a little bit more geared toward natural offense, while Celesteela is geared toward natural paced play, if that makes sense. And that's why I could see Kressel, using her wall breakers, her wall breakers to kind of set up a situation where Celestella can come in late game and be able to utilize that natural from the stretch paced play to kind of sit on teams. She can very much turn this into. I could see this being a 1-0 victory for the Umbreons if just some rolls don't go in her way, but easily it could be just really ugly going forward if Jodor's not on 100% point with all of his switch-ins.
Right.
And what did the analysts think out there as a group?
The analysts are probably saying, or probably hoping, what we're hoping is that Jodor doesn't fire us because it's 6-2 in favor of Cress.
And that's what we're saying right there. Cressel is 100%. Competent in her battling. She has skittles. She knows what she's doing. She may have picked a underpowered team as far as just roster sexiness, but at the same time, it's one that she can work with and one that she can utilize. And like I said, has the capabilities to just run through your team in the right situation. That's why we're picking her. Jodor, prove us wrong, though. Prove us wrong going forward, please.
Indeed.
And don't fire us. Let's move on to our next matchup, though, if you don't mind. We're going to see the LA Landers versus the Duke City Blades. We have Jerry Oak versus Volskyler. Now, please, Lynx, what are you seeing going forward?
I'm seeing a very scary team from Jerry Oak. Starmie, whether it's offensive, I have seen a defensive Starmie. I don't know how well it worked, but there's the Starmie. The unpredictable Gliscor, whether it be defog or, the normal defensive set, maybe even a baton pass set. Cobalion, never know what it's going to do, whether it's the standard lead or just something that can sweep you with sword stance or maybe even go special. And then, of course, he has Tapu Koko sitting there and a couple defensive walls and a Mungus and Aggron there as well.
Yeah.
And then you look at Skylar's team, it's slightly, or not even slightly, it's very defensive with a couple heavy hitters.
Right.
Like Star Raptor's there, Tauros is there.
Now
it's one of those matchups. Are you going to go offense or are you going to go defense? That's the toss-up matchup.
And that's the truth, though. That is really the truth. Now, the thing is with that, though, is that, like I said, he does have the Mega Venusaur Heatran Slowbro core. You can say it's defensive, but let's be honest, you can make Heatran very offensive very quickly. Right. And Mega Venusaur can just sit on your team. It's kind of like Celesteela and Cresselia when you really think about it in a way. They're just it's a Pokemon that can self-recover and just kind of sit there in a lot of ways and just kind of just absorb hits, be that just wall for you to gain pace. And if you don't bring the right thing to break it, then you're kind of just stuck sitting there. I think that Jerry Oak does have the Pokemon that are going to be able to do it. And the biggest concern for me is not going to be with Volskyler's team, but it's going to be just his going into the battle because I think he had 2 misgen Mons in the last match. Is that correct, Lynx?
I remember one. I'm not sure about the second.
Mega Venusaur was unable to
Mega Venusaur. He didn't. The issue with Mega Venusaur was that he didn't. He wasn't far along in the game to get the Mega Ring.
Mega Ring,
which is the Keystone Ring. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Which is still a miss part on your prep. That's one of those things you got to take care of it going forward. I don't like to talk like that because it just sounds mean. But at the end of the day, that's your behind the scenes issues. You exactly.
Right.
And then of course, I think there was also one more Pokemon that I remember him mention. Like I remember watching. I think it was Austin. It was the Luxray's side of the battle, and it was just one of those where the exception mentioned that there was one other Pokemon that there was some kind of problem with it or whatever, like it didn't have a right move or didn't have a right EVs or whatever, and that's a problem. If you're not double checking, triple checking your stuff before you go into battle, that can lead to issues going forward. And I don't know, Jerry Oak looked way too competent, in my opinion, to give it to anyone else but Jerry Oak in this match. What do you think, Lynx?
Yeah, I'm giving it to Jerry as well. I think Tapu Koko runs train through Skylar's team in this matchup. I understand, he has the Mega Venusaur there, and maybe even the Palisand, but I just think Tapu Koko has a field day on this team.
Yeah, I mean, and this is one of the few matchups that actually, Jerry can actually bring Moltres and actually have some serious fun with it. I would love to see Moltres come to this matchup with, of course, Gliscor for support, and just see him have a field day with those two. I feel like he could stall the entire team out by using the rotational play of a default Gliscor with some hard hitting offensive Moltres possibly. Skylar, please prove us wrong though. But when we go look at the actual analyst totals, the analysts are kind of in agreement with us as a whole. It's 6-2 in favor of the LA Landorus and Jerry Oak going forward. It's a good roster, and like I said, Skylar got handled pretty hard last week, and also, like I said, we mentioned had the issues with making sure his team was right, making sure that's an issue. That's an issue going forward. Skylar, though, please prove us wrong. But let's move on to our next matchup right there, Lynx. In this next matchup, we have the Luster City Pokemon Club and T-Train versus the San Diego Charizards. Really going to be an interesting matchup right here, in my opinion. This is another one of these coaches that he's 1-0, but the Charizards didn't play last week. Any thoughts there?
And well, it's one of those things. Does Vampanese's history? I believe he won the season last year, right? If I'm not mistaken. So does his history as the champion, carry on to this season? Or does the fact that T-Train overcame the hacks to still win, it kind of makes you wonder. Prior to all that hacks, though, T-Train played a perfect game with the Magearna and with the rest of his team. It's kind of worrisome for anyone who goes up against this team. I use Magearna in a league myself, and I know how difficult it is for my opponents to prep for it.
Mm-hmm.
And Magearna just hits hard like a truck, even if you run a non-specially attack invested Magearna.
And more importantly with that, it wasn't just the fact that he used Magearna so well and played everything perfectly. Or that he overcame the hacks. If you notice, he wasn't using standard, just basic team sets. He was using complex strategy to win the game. Did you notice that, Lynx? He was using complex strategy. Anytime you're trying to use Trick Room variants to body bag a roster, Trick Room variants with recovery, there were several plays that you could see that he had mapped out what he was going to do 4 or 5 turns in advance. And you felt like he was playing chess with the Clinks versus actually just playing Pokemon. I think T-Train, despite being one of the smallest channels on this roster, definitely is going to be showing some kneecaps to the door this season. And it's hard to vote against somebody who did that well in the face of serious adversity last week.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree. It was just awe-inspiring for me to see everything. Like, he never lost his cool with all the hacks. He just said, this is what I have to do, and he just kept it. I know how we talked about Nexus. Nexus was having fun even though he was losing, but this is how we were mentioning all the hacks. You still have to keep playing. You still have to keep your cool and just keep going, and that's what T-Train did, and he pulled out the win.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm going for T-Train in this matchup. How about yourself, Lynx?
I'm going T-Train as well.
And the analysts actually agree going forward. There's 6-2 in favor of the Leicester City Pokemon Club in favor over the Charizards. Vump, prove us wrong, though. You didn't play last week, and you do have a history of being a very, very skilled and competent battler. We want to see what you've got going forward, and we think that you have what it takes. It's just hard to vote against somebody who just, like I said, overcame extreme adversity. What was the damage rolls on that right there? I think it was 4 of the last 6 turns you said earlier? Yeah, 4 of the last 6 turns. Magearna was paralyzed, which Magearna could have swept the rest of the team to win 3-0, but correct. And I think during one of those turns, the actual Trick Room went down to where he even had to reset the Trick Room at some point, I think.
Yeah.
And that's just one of those things going forward. But let's move on to our next match, which is going to be the Tampa Bay Luxrays versus the Orlando Magikarps. Now, give me a little bit of that rundown for the Hundown.
So this is a matchup I personally am excited for because I am from Florida. I live in between both of these cities.
Okay.
And we call this matchup the War on I-4. That is the interstate that connects the two cities.
I forget you're a Floridan.
Yes. So I'm really excited for this matchup just purely on name alone. But I look at Choice Spex's team, the Orlando Magikarp, and I see a lot of versatility. Last week we saw Mega Slowbro put in some work against Jodor, and we saw Aerodactyl early on. It took a Meteor Mash from Metagross to knock it down to his Focus Sash, but he played it right. He got the damage off on Metagross and switched it out for later. He also, he has the offensive monster that is Dragonite. Depending on how he chooses to play it, can he bring a special Dragonite? We don't know. Last gen, what's the item that once you take a super effective hit, it boosts both sides of your offense? Weakness policy?
Weakness policy,
yeah. It's possible that we could see that in this matchup. And then let me look at the Temper Luxray side. You have the Latias, the defensive monster that she has always been. Last week, he played with Deontay as a defensive role very well to take on, his opponent's team, to take on Skylar's team, I'm sorry. He has Mega Absol as well. It's a great, both of these teams are great. And it's one of those matchups I wasn't sure who to pick.
I get you. For me, it was a bit more cut and dry, and I had to just look at the rosters. Here's the thing, is that the Orlando Magikarp have such a huge problem when it comes to ice. It's just, and especially if you add in a freeze dry user. Now, thankfully for Orlando this week, they are not playing against a freeze dry user. But I can see three things coming for the exception this week. We're going to see Latias with Ice Beam. We're going to see Mega Absol with Ice Beam. We're going to see Porygon Z with Nasty Plot and Ice Beam. We're going to, I believe it. We're going to see the bulky, quiet natured set from Porygon Z with Ice Beam and Nasty Plot. We're going to see also, of course, to deal with the ice switch-ins, which are going to be your Magneton, which is going to be your Snorlax. We're going to see those coming from the Orlando Magikarp, getting a hard time dealing with Darmanitan and Hitmontop, because those two Pokemon right there, unless you're already at like +2 on Curselax, Curselax doesn't like getting hit by Darmanitan. I don't care what you're using. I mean, from the stretch, Flare Blitz doesn't feel good, and more importantly, I forget whether it has superpower, I believe, but it also has Brick Break if it wants to go for just not for the defense drops or whatever. But like I said, I feel like that's going to be. I hope they don't hear this and like change the prep against it or whatever. I'm sorry if I gave away all your secrets.
I'm hoping they already have this battle done, because the video doesn't go up until Friday. So.
Well, like I said, I hope that I'm not giving away all your secrets here. Exception, but this is what I see right there. I see that, and I think that's what's going to happen right there. Is that this is going to be the problem for the Magikarp all season long. He did a good job of getting around it, but it was also because I think last week Jodor's team had the same problem with ice weaknesses. So it's one of those that you have to be able to address it, and Curselax is definitely going to be able to help address it every single week. But man, you're putting some pressure on Curselax and Magneton each and every week just by having that situation right there.
Yeah. I agree that he definitely has the ice weakness. The only thing that I don't want to say that exception will run is all the ice beams or all the ice attacks, just because it takes away coverage.
It does. It does.
I just don't want to say that, and that's the reason I'm going to pick Orlando to win this matchup, is because he's not going to run enough ice.
You think that the Luxrays are not going to run enough ice moves?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I definitely see Mega Absol coming just to stop Mega Slowbro.
Yeah.
And I see Latias coming just for, because it's a Latias.
Well, not only that, but Mega Absol, remember, does get I believe it's their close combat or superpower, one of those two, and it also does get Ice Beam coverage. It gets flamethrower coverage. And I really could see it. The situation with Absol this week is going to be that it has the issue of four move syndrome this week. Right. Where ideally I would run knockoff, I would run knockoff, I would run superpower or close combat, whichever one it is, ice beam and flamethrower, and just use it like that. Full investment in speed and attack. With just I think it'd be like a naughty nature or whatever. Boost the attack, don't lower the special attack, and just see what happens. But we're gonna have to see. You're right. I think it could end up being a situation where he might not have enough ice coverage. but I see the Lux Rays winning this match. It's just it's one of those. It's mentally just too easy to prep for in my head. But please prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, our fellow analysts agree with you. I'm on the short end of this one. The Lux Rays are favorite, 6-2.
Yeah. So, but like I said, prove us wrong. Like I said, anytime we don't pick you to win, I want you to prove us wrong. I want you to look at me in the eye next week and say, hey, you were wrong.
You screwed up.
Let's move on to our final match, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed this format so far. If you want us to be a bit more expedited in the future, let us know, or just yell at us in the Discord server, whatever you want to do. But the final matchup of this week is going to be the Waterloo Sawsbucks versus the Maryland Torts Terrapins, and this is going to be a little bit of an interesting one. What do you say there, buddy? Lynxy?
I'm sorry, I don't have much to say about this. I think Kelly, not only experience and knowledge, but Kelly just has the better team. He knows how to use the team. He understands what it is he's doing with the team.
Right.
Kelly just wins this one. I don't think it's a big margin. Maybe 3-0 or 4-0. It's not going to be a 5-0 or 6-0. But
yeah,
I think Kelly just wins this one, walking away pretty easy.
Old School Sen last week in his matchup, one of the scary things about live commentary is that it does allow you to showcase, your brain fart moments, your brain fart moments wherever you just like, oh, this is what I was thinking in that moment and it was wrong and I made a mistake. And one of the things, and I'm not going to go into too much detail right here because we all have these moments. But there was a moment that really showed a lot of concern for me and a lot of concern for a couple of other people that were actually watching this. I think Lynx and I agreed on this, but we're not going to go into it as to what it actually was. But it just showed to me that Old School Sin is a little green when it comes down to it. And, I think if this was a later point in the season or whatnot, it would showcase a different situation, possibly be a bit more of an even matchup maybe. But Kelly's just too experienced. He's going to be able to pull this out, even if his team had a disadvantageous matchup. I have to go with my boy Kelly under the radar in this matchup as well. And the analyst actually agreed in this one. And it shows right here, I put on the actual reverse order right there. It shows, I have it on screen right now at 7-1 in favor of the Sawsbucks. It's actually the reverse right there. So please forgive me for putting the wrong total in there. I just misput which one it actually is. So only one person picked the Sawsbucks, and we would like to get a comment on him about why he picked that, but we don't have that opportunity. But those are our picks right here for this week going forward. Of all 12 of the matchups going forward. Like I said, if you enjoyed our analytical conversation about these matchups going forward, please leave a like right there. Show the NPA channel and, of course, all of the coaches, especially those smaller coaches out there, some love with your sub buttons. And more importantly, stay tuned to the NPA channel for more of these type of videos where we go and break down what is happening to show you what are the mindset of these guys is week to week. Lynx, any final words, please?
Thank you guys so much for watching. Like my co-host Levonant said, check out all the battles going up on Saturday, and have a great weekend.
Folks, have a wonderful night. Peace.